Welcome very much also from my side, and thank you very much for inviting me for this talk about the data analysis of magnetic small-molecule scheduling, or not about a specific science case on the data for the data analysis, but more about the prospects of how to develop programs for the data analysis. I'm instrument scientist at the European Spallation source. And together with the SASU team, which is a program for the analysis of magnetic of SACS and SANS data, we try to improve the functions of this program for the analysis of especially magnetic aspects of SANS data. And for this, I want to mention that it is actually quite important to always have in mind that the data reduction together with data analysis and instrumentation aspects is a kind of loop where you cannot forget about one part to interpret the other. So for example, for the interpretation of the data analysis of magnetic SANS data, as for example shown here, this was a measurement taken from a PhD student, Ahmed Al-Shimi from Elizabeth Blackburn. So for the interpretation of this data, you have to have in mind, how did you acquire the data? What kind of instrumentation did you have? What kind of measurement did you perform? For example, which type of Hawking curve? How well was the spin of the neutron transported from the source to the detector? And then how did you do the data reduction? Because otherwise it might happen that you interpret the data in a wrong way. And for developing the program for data analysis, we have performed several workshops here at LINX, for example, to define which kind of current constraints data analysis programs do have at the moment, how can we improve that? And then we also had a follow-up workshop to integrate our ideas into the SASView program. So it is not a kind of apologize that I will not show you a science case in this talk, but I do think that it is quite important to tell why do we need these kinds of workshops for the development of the code for data analysis, and why especially we need the help of LINX for this. And this you already see here, because for example, in our very first workshop, and you already see it is quite a small group of newcomers, science experts, and code developers. But this small group here already is from nearly everywhere in the world. It's not from only around Sweden, it's from everywhere in Europe, but also from USA. It was a 2-day workshop where our goal was to define the constraints and needs for the data analysis programs of magnetic SANS data. So also to define, to ask the user community, what do they wish to have included into data analysis programs, and to define how can we insert that into the SASView code and to broaden the community. And only for this small 2-day workshop, people from USA needed to come here. And this is also kind of costly. And yeah, that's why actually I want to show how important it is that we are able here at LINX to organize these workshops. And yeah, these were the goals we had for the first workshop. Then the structure actually was also to motivate newcomers to be active in the code development. And for that, first we have presented what kind of functions SASView does have at the moment for the analysis of magnetic SANS data. And then we have divided it up into small personalized group discussions. For example, which kinds of functions are still needed? How can they be integrated? And this is one of the very main questions: who would program it? Because SASView is an open source user community-based program. This has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are that everyone can take part, and it can be made available for the whole world. So basically for every user group who is performing magnetic SANS data, but also it is the users who will develop it in the end. And then the results here were to have a kind of to-do list, what has to be implemented into SASView for the development of magnetic SANS data analysis, to have more regular meetings to improve it from year-to-year basis. And also there are some ideas we have, how can we improve it, for example, by some video tutorials on YouTube, how to use SASView for the data analysis, but also to have, for example, joint proposals for students' projects for the code development, together with several universities. Now, this was the first workshop we have one where we have made this kind of to-do list. So basically, we just have written down what is to be done. Then, of course, the next part is to have a follow-up workshop to implement into SASView from the points from our to-do list, to basically start the coding. And yeah, so we have in the second follow-up workshop worked on the open action items from the first workshop and have specifically thought about how to actually write the code for this. And we have run it as an online workshop, because as you also see, these are also people from all over the world, and a lot of them also from USA. And then you see that it gets more expensive and expensive if we run this on a half-year or one-year basis. And yeah, in this workshop, we have, for example, sat down to see what can we implement into SASView specifically. So we spoke, for example, about multiple sector cuts, that we can, for example, have such a kind of wedge slicer for different peaks of some kind of anisotropic magnetic SANS data, to make these wedge slicers, or basically any kind of slicer where we want to integrate inside movable, and also that we want to have it possible to analyze wavelength dependent data, because it is important for the data analysis if you have measured on a time of flight source, or if you have measured on a reactor source. And even if you convert your measurement into Q space afterwards, you still have to take into account what was the basis of your measurement, which again is this loop that you have to know what was the instrumentation for your data analysis. Yes, and then especially I want to mention two aspects here that already have been partially started, partially finished. So for example, the integration of MUMAC, written for Michael Adams from Luxembourg University, who was visiting student here at Links for some months last year. And he has integrated the fit of magnetic parameters, like, for example, the exchange constant and the magnetocrystalline anisotropic constant, as what Andreas Michels has just shown you before, to the dependence of magnetic SANS data to the magnetic field development. And then the second example is that a student from the Konica at ICES at the Newton source in England, Alice Huens, has implemented that we have this kind of wedge-shaped slicer and not just box slicer, because that might impact which kind of peak development you will see, or what is your integration, your final integrated sum of the peak. And yes, he has programmed this in SASView. And then as a result of these workshops, we have formulated GitHub issues where we have specifically written down how to code what we want to code for SASView. And we have the plan for further in-person and online meetings. And also there is an idea to not only have these kind of specific meetings here at Links, but to incorporate it to other workshops or seminars at other places, or also organized from other universities around the world, for example, so that we can do it anywhere, so that the user community can come sometimes to Links, but sometimes to other places, to not always have the same far travel. Yes, and with this, then I would first like to thank all the participants from our workshops from all over the world, and want to mention that especially we have tried to keep it also close to young scientists and to also organize trainings in schools from SAS view, how to use it and how to use it also. So the idea is, which is not possible yet, but we would like to make these kind of YouTube trainings or schools, especially for magnetic SANS data, which is not existing yet, but someone has to do it. And yeah, and with this, I think I have made the point clear that why we need links to help us organizing these workshops, and that's why the final thanks goes, of course, to links for the support during these workshops. Thank you very much.